So typically at the top of the movement, we've got extension of the shoulder, depression and adduction of the scapulars, and retraction of the scapulars. Now, it might be the case that some of us lack the strength and the mobility to get into those positions, in which case we can do some drills for you to get there. However, it might be the case that your structure does not permit this. And I just want to give a quick overview of the structural limitations that might mean that you can't get your chest to the bar, which is fine. It does not mean that you are not working the full range of motion in the lats and the traps. It means that you might well be working the full range of motion for you, even though you can't get your chest to the bar. So let me talk about those structural implications now. First one is ribcage shape. There's a huge amount of variability between rib cages for all humans on the planet. Someone like me, I have a very concave rib cage, which means it's quite rounded, and I also have a narrower, what's called infrasternal angle, essentially the angle between my ribs and my sternum. And these combined mean that my rib cage angles upwards slightly. So that means because it's at a slight angle, it's already going to be at an advantageous position for me to get my chest to the bar. However, if you have more of a flat rib cage and a wider infrasternal angle, then the angle of your rib cage likely is more perpendicular to the floor, which means it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you to get your chest to the bar. So that's one thing to bear in mind, your rib cage shape and the angle from sternum to your shoulder girdle. Next is your spine. Again, there's a lot of variability in the structure of the spine, and some people are going to be able to extend their spine more than others. And if you combine the fact that you can extend your spine with a rib cage that's shaped like mine, more concave, then that presents another advantage compared to someone who can't extend their spine and has a flat rib cage. So that again is another factor that's going to influence whether or not you can get your chest to the bar. Tied to that, the extent to which you can extend the spine is also going to determine the extent to which you can depress your scapulars. Typically, more extension means that the shoulder blades can move down the spine more, which means that we've got a nice strong retracted position. If you are not able to extend your spine as much, then that may limit the extent to which your shoulder blades can depress, or you might find that range a lot sooner than someone who can extend their spine significantly. This can be structural, this can be a mobility issue, but this is something that you need to consider in order to manage your expectations as to whether or not you will be able to get your chest to the bar in a pull-up. And the next one is the height of your shoulder girdle. So if you're someone whose shoulders are naturally more elevated, and I don't mean actually shrugged, just because I have to shrug to get into that position. If your shoulders are higher and more square, then you're probably likely to hit end range of your pull a lot sooner than if your shoulder blades are more depressed. As someone who's got higher shoulders means that they're going to hit their range of depression a lot sooner than someone who's got slightly lower shoulders. So that is another structural consideration that might mean that you are not able to get your chest to the bar. Someone who is able to get their chest to the bar may have concave ribs, able to extend the spine, lower shoulder girdle, which means naturally they're going to be able to get their chest to the bar a lot easier than someone who's got high shoulders, flatter rib cage, unable to extend the spine. Is going to be a lot harder. In which case, adjust your expectations. It might be absolutely fine for you to get your chin over the bar rather than your chest to the bar. So now that we've got the structural considerations out of the way, let's talk about some mobility movements that we can do in order to try and get those ranges, because it might be a mobility issue as opposed to a structural one. So firstly, let's talk about spine extension. A couple of moves that we can do to unlock some spine extension is going to be the cat-cow, because you're going to be moving from a flexed into an extended position. So that's going to be a useful first move, just to get that mobility. Then, in order to strengthen that pattern of extension, get yourself on the floor, prone position, and do the prone cobra. And that's going to be specifically focused on you being able to extend the spine, and with that movement, you're also going to be able to depress the scapulars as well. So now we've dealt with spine extension with the cobra and the cat-cow. Let's talk about increasing range in shoulder extension, because that's the limiting factor I see with a lot of my clients. So I'm just going to show you from the side. First, we're just essentially going to do a stretch here, and I want you to take this nice and slowly. So I'm going to put my fingers pointing back, because that's going to allow me to get my shoulder blades into a position that's close to the spine. From here, I just want you to elevate your hips slightly and move your hips slowly towards your heels, and you'll see that my shoulders are extending. So shoulder extension is this here, and this is shoulder flexion. Now you might find that that is fairly uncomfortable already. So you might just want to make adjustments, bring the hands in and just do small movements in and out just to try and find that range of motion. And once you get to an end range, you can hold momentarily. But at the start, just focus on playing around with this position so that you can start to experience shoulder extension. Now, once you're fairly proficient with this, hands can get quite far back and you can bring your hips all the way to your heels like so. It might be time to progress this to something that's going to strengthen that position more. And so a good move for this is what's called a tabletop. So you essentially start in the same position, elbows in. That's going to lock the joints, chest up, and then just drive the hips up as much as you can. And you'll see shoulders are massively in extension here before we go back down. And you can do this for reps, holding at the top, feeding that stretch before we go down. And so that's going to be a great move for you to work on some shoulder extension. Next, we want to start to unlock some retraction. So the move for this is going to be the active row, and that's going to help bring our shoulder blades together and really engage the rhomboids, the traps and the lats, because we're depressing the scapulars as well. Next up, we've got the active hang. That's going to help us depress our scapulars a lot more. So we're going to be engaging the lower traps and the rhomboids. And because we've done some retraction work already with the active row, that's going to transfer nicely to doing these active hangs. Once we've got those moves, we now need to integrate them. So we're going to start with that row. Make sure that we're getting full range of motion with this one and really pulling your chest to the bar so that we're internalizing that position. And then once we've done that, we can move on to supported pull-ups. And again, focus on getting your chest to the bar to internalize that position. And once we've gone through those movements, we're going to find that we are well placed, if our structure permits, for us to be able to do chest to bar pull-ups. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.